We'll move on to item 6.6, consideration of a report from Municipal Resource Group on your board's March 21st, 2025 training workshop on general governance, priority development, and organizational effectiveness. And we have Matthew Rothstein here.
Matthew.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Matthew Rothstein, Chief Deputy County Administrative Officer. And Johanna, if you don't mind displaying the slides. As you're aware, on March 21, 2025, your board engaged in a training workshop focused on general governance, priority development, and organizational effectiveness, hosted by Robert Bendorf of Municipal Resources Group. We're grateful to Mr. Bendorf for a high-quality training experience and facilitated discussion. And the intent of that workshop was solely to provide background for your board's consideration toward future policy direction. No board action was taken during the March 21, 2025 training workshop. Next slide. Mr. Bendorf since provided a summary report of that day's discussion, which includes documentation of your boards and gathered department heads' communicated expectations regarding the role of county administrative officer. And Mr. Bendorf also indicated that the roles and duties of top county executives, whether identified as a county administrative or executive officer, are typically codified in local ordinance. Presently, Article 1, Section 2-1.7 of the County Code notes the following. Direction of county operation, the setting of policy, shall be by action of the Board of Supervisors, with implementation through the department heads and overview by the county administrative coordinator, and understood to be the county administrative officer. Your board provided no direction to staff during the workshop to bring forward an ordinance clarifying the county executive's role, and administration expects that members of your board would wish for there to be an inclusive process that engages county department heads and others prior to introduction and presentation of any such ordinance. During the workshop, your board was also introduced to a model for priority setting and strategic planning, and examples of how focus areas contained within your board's existing Vision 2028 priority statement could be developed into specific strategic priorities and action items were discussed during the workshop and subsequently wordsmithed by Mr. Bendorf. The slides that are presented today and the documents that are included with your board packet are examples only. For clarity, they're ideas and do not represent final decision making. Today, your board is invited to discuss Mr. Bendorf's report, and you may also consider providing direction to staff. For example, does your board desire any further information toward consideration of executive leadership models? And as noted in Mr. Bendorf's report, members of your board seemed to support identification of more granular deliverables associated with Vision 2028, and you likewise had the opportunity to engage an example model. As referenced by Mr. Bendorf, strategic planning holistically is a detailed process, typically involving all department heads, potentially a survey of the community, and development or refreshment of vision and purpose or mission statements, with a plan to communicate strategies throughout the organization and with the public. So again, in terms of potential direction to staff, would you like administration to gather further information on strategic planning options? We're looking forward to your board's discussion and direction.
Supervisor Sabatier?
So a couple of things. One, absolutely 150% we needed a strategic plan yesterday, and so interested in moving forward with that. I think that will help not just us to streamline our efforts, but also future boards. Because a good strategic plan should not completely flip-flop from one day to the other. It is a living document, but at least it can help provide guidance on direction for the future. So 100% I think we should get on that, and I personally don't think a strategic plan is a difficult task. I'd love to see that done internally and not pay for somebody to do that. We know the county the best. We know what we want to see. I don't think we need to pay somebody to ask us what we would like to see and then put it all together for us. As far as changing the county administrator, I have no interest in changing the current recipe that we're following. But I do have interest in looking at, is there opportunities in consolidating departments? I think that would be a streamlining experiment that I'd like to take a look at. I don't know what the budgeting differences would look like. I don't know what the position allocation differences would look like. So it's not something that let's make it happen. It's more of let's do an exploratory look at what that would look like and what would be the pros and cons of moving forward with some of that, because I think there's a lot of different potential areas that can look at consolidation. I think that's all that I wanted to say on that. Yeah, I hit the points.
Vice Chair, go ahead.
Yeah, starting with the strategic plan, yes, I'm in favor of having that, completing that. I think we have a good starting point. I think we've done a lot of work, and you know, the stuff that came out of the Vision 2028, there's still a lot of pertinent things in there that are important to our county, and I think we need to get that as soon as we can, for one. As far as the leadership model, I'm in favor of investigating this. One of the big pieces for me is, however, before we make any decisions, I want to have input and involvement from all of our department heads. I know we have 5 elected officials, which they wouldn't be part of any change because they're independently elected, but I'd still like input from them, as well as the other 20 or so departments that we have. I think our role as supervisors is policymakers and being at the high level. I don't think it's necessarily in our purview to be focusing on supervision and management. I think we're more in the position to be looking at policy and holding an executive accountable to carry out the direction that the board sets. If we set the direction, then, we expect our CEO to go out there and make sure that direction happens and hold everybody else accountable. I think there's some inefficiencies in the current way we're doing business, so I'm definitely in favor in looking at it, but I think there's a lot of discussions that happen. I wouldn't be ready to make a decision today on changing a leadership model, but I really want to hear what our departments and what the public has to say. I mean, there is public comment out there about it. It's come up for me before, and I have talked to a couple department heads, so I know there's thoughts out there that I want to get. I know it can get complex because the law states that about 7 of our department heads, not counting the CEO and the county council, which I think would always work for the board. I think there's about 6 or 7 other departments that the law says that the board shall not delegate their authority away, but I think if the board wants to, I think they have the ability to delegate supervision and management to a CEO while still retaining final authority and responsibility. I know there's a lot of counties that do it that way. And then the other thing that I think is important is I don't want to have different supervision models for different department heads. I think if we're going to make a change, we need to treat everyone the same and have the same model going. In other words, I don't want to have half the department heads reporting to a CEO and the other half reporting to the Board of Supervisors. I think that would be a lot more problematic. So just kind of my thoughts right now. I think it's something that we should explore to see if it could be more effective for us. Thank you.
Supervisor Pyska.
Yeah, I'm all in agreement for strategic planning, and I agree with Vice Chair. I think we're at a point in time in our organization that we have grown a lot, and I think it's worth investigating our leadership model to explore, hybrid options. It's something that's maybe custom for us with the input of all of our department heads. Because, I mean, take these board meetings, for example. We have them every Tuesday. We're one of the only counties in the state of California that have board meetings every Tuesday. And every Tuesday, we are here from 9 until all of the staff have already gone home. And then we have our department heads spending all of their time planning around our meetings. And then they're sitting with us in our meetings. And I have talked to them, and these meetings are burning them out and taking away from the work that they need to be doing and to be providing services and developing programs and doing what we've asked. But then we are holding them back. So it wasn't always like this. Board meetings did not always go on, weren't as long as they are today. I think we've lost a lot of the public. We have 2 very dedicated members that come here, but that's pretty much it. There was a time when people came and watched our meetings and paid attention because they were a couple hours long. And I think this is a place where we really need to focus on efficiencies so that we're supporting our staff and we're able to accomplish the things that we're setting out as priorities. I don't know what that looks like. I think it's really worth exploring with department heads and staff to figure out what could work for us.
So, in discussing this topic, especially with regard to strategic plan, I know we've had that 2018, 2028 vision, visioning. I know that predates all of us. We weren't a part of that. It gave us a trajectory, but I think having something that focuses on specifics and gives us the opportunity to craft it, knowing that eventually another group of leaders eventually are elected and they'll come forward and, readjust it as well. So I'm on board with the strategic plan. As for the leadership, I know that was a big discussion in the workshop, and I know other counties do specific things. We're all unique. All of our counties are unique. Some are big counties, some have staff, some have, all these different aspects of things. But I'm willing to discuss a hybrid model. I know that sometimes drastic change, it gets too overwhelming and we go too far, or we go too, or we don't do enough. So if we can have a discussion that, gets us into a comfortable or amenable way to move forward with that, I'm willing to do so. I know at times it would behoove us to have one directive or one person to give the directive, but then at the same time, there's got to be a balance for it. So I know that there's other counties similar to ours that have that model, but I think it would be a good idea to have the discussion about a hybrid. And then I see your pen's up, Supervisor Owen.
Yes. I kind of like the model that we have currently. I think that we are hired to...
Microphone.
I'm sorry. Okay, I kind of like the model that we have right now, but I haven't experienced the other model either. But as of right now, I kind of like it because I feel like we're really hands-on as supervisors, which I think is really important. And I don't mind being here every week. I figure I'm collecting a salary, I should be here, So I don't mind being here. I know that we've talked to many of the other supervisors in other districts, and they do twice a month, I don't know how they do it. They have much bigger counties than we do, but they do. But I kind of like it. As far as the strategic plan, I think that's really important. And as I'd like to echo what Supervisor Sabatier has mentioned about doing it in-house rather than paying for it to be done, I think that would be shrewd. Perhaps some ad hocs committees for each of those topics. I know that, let me see. I can't find it really quick, but infrastructure, for instance, having a little ad hoc for infrastructure, getting that in place, what we're needing, and bringing the department heads in those areas forward onto those ad hocs would probably behoove us. But I do like the idea of having having us do it in-house rather than hiring it out.
Okay. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Chair. In relation to the strategic planning, since we have been working on the CIP, which we would have to do first anyhow before we even started strategic planning, I think we can accommodate that internally. Thank you, Stephen, for volunteering to take that on.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I don't think that we're going to steer away from having weekly meetings for sure by any means, because I know that there's still a lot to do. I do at times, I don't know, maybe I'm not getting the right vibe, but at times I feel like when I'm working with some of the directors that they do feel overwhelmed with us at times. So I know that there's got to be something that we can do to give them a little more leeway to do their work. But there is a benefit to having a connection as well. So that's why I'm saying a hybrid or a discussion on that. But I do feel you on them being here all the time and having to
See some
deal with
nodding.
this, yeah. But within arm's reach, but again, we'll have that discussion further. I don't know who was first, so you guys.
I think it was me. I just want to make sure, and I'm sure it's on the CAO's list, that we have the budget information too. If we make a change, what is it going to cost potentially? Because I don't know if that's going to require additional staff in the admin office. I definitely want to make sure we're looking at, in addition to all the reasons that we may or may not want to do it, but how much is the budget impact too, I think is another important piece that we have in front of us before we make any decisions. Thank you.
Supervisor Spatier.
So just a thought. I hear you. I see people in the back. I think if it's a specific item coming from a department head, they shouldn't be untimed. That way there's a specific time that they'll never go before that, and we'll make sure that it's after that. If it's something we bring up or something that's not specific to a department, then I think at that point you can put it, I think we need to rework how our agendas maybe are put together, because untimed, I'll just point out behavioral health because that's who I see and who we see the majority of the time back there. Untimed means any time, and if it was timed, then at that point that would be a little easier on knowing at least never before that specific time. I do want to ask the rest of the board if there's interest in continued discussion at looking at consolidating departments into super agencies. We have health services, social services, behavioral health. Would that be better if they were under one umbrella? We have infrastructure departments. Would that be better if they were under one umbrella? Some of these are done differently in different counties, just looking at, again, the pros and cons, and if there's interest in looking at some of those types of changes as well.
Go ahead, Supervisor Pyska, then you'll go.
Okay.
I'm okay with looking at it, but I feel like it's a little bit off the topic of what we're looking at for this part of leadership. But if it comes up in conversation with department heads, I guess it's worth exploring. I just want to make sure that we're staying focused on this agenda item, which has been pushed how many times this summer because our meetings ran too long, and we're running out of time on Tuesdays. And I don't mind being here, and I think we should keep having weekly meetings. But I do know that staff has to spend an incredible amount of time prepping for the meeting, there's a lot that goes in to getting ready for today and not just sitting here today. So I think those are the areas where we really need to look at where we can be more efficient. So I'm okay with looking at that kind of broadly, but I don't want it to deviate from the conversation that we've been trying to have around this for a long time.
Supervisor Owen?
You know, I think that's a pretty interesting concept, and I think it's worth looking into as far as consolidating, and there may be some redundancy going on within a few that are closely related, that we might be able to make better use of that time where we don't have 2 or 3 departments working kind of simultaneously on something similar. So I think it's definitely worth looking at. Bringing, obviously, the department heads in to talk about it and letting them have some input on how this would look.
Vice Chair?
Yeah, I don't know 100% what that would look like, but I do think that if we're having this other conversation, it does make sense to add it in as far as that consolidation to talk about it and see what it potentially would look like. But again, I want the primary focus to where I'm at to be first on the overall leadership model. And then if we are talking about any consolidation, again, I want to have heavy amount of input from department heads and see what their thoughts are. Because they're the ones that run it, and they know, I don't know, what their operations look like. They're the experts. So, but I'm happy to add it in for the discussion.
I think too, just being a part of the board since 2019, there have been, different variances here and there of our style. But one thing that is consistent is turnover. Another thing that's consistent is just the amount of time spent on specific projects that haven't been, that don't have the funding or don't have the resources to finish them out. There's quite a bit. So it's not at the fault of the departments themselves. I think a lot of it is, I wouldn't say necessarily even the structure per se, but it's part of it. So I think it's a good, in all aspects, it's good to have this discussion, because to fine tune it, to make it work is important. Not that it's not working, but it's not working more optimal that we could, So all of this is important. I want to be able to help adjust that benefits and it gives them the opportunity to thrive. I also don't want to limit and take away from specific directors as well, because right now, it's not just because, what if we decide to collaborate departments, what happens now? We're losing a director, or, is that the discussion we're going to have later? Because that's the thing too. I don't, if I'm in staff right now, I'm going to feel worried, hearing that. So, again, I know that there's room there's opportunity and room for, tightening, and making things more, up to date, if you will, just what works for now, because we've tried the same thing for quite some time, and it's been legacy practice. So if we can figure out a way to work in a more efficient way, that'd be helpful. And of course, listening to our staff give us some insight, that would help as well, because they might know what helps them more, or what redundancies we have in place that are hindering. So I just figured I'd add that. Did you have yours up, or I know you do.
Go ahead.
I appreciate that you mentioned Vision 2028 and the fact that none of us were there for that.
Yeah.
I would like to offer, as we do the strategic plan, if we can have an updated vision and maybe translate that to Vision 2050 to match our general plan vision. That way, again, it's got that long-term date, and it can be a living document that can be morphed as time moves on. But I think I would like to see if we can maybe reboot and start from scratch, because 2028 is literally around the corner versus when it started in 2018.
CAO, you turn on your mic.
I did.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Respectfully, what I'd like to do, since we don't have the CIP done yet, and what we're trying to do is get this done in a fairly short period of time, bring it back to the board. I'm referring to the strategic plan. Then we have a base, and we can, when we start to go the long time distance, and I don't know when the general plan will be completed, and Maria, you don't have to share at this point in time, but I don't want to stall the strategic planning element. That'll help us with the base. It's easy update, and then we add to that. for if it's 2020, 2050, or you generally don't go that long in a strategic plan. You usually do maybe 10 years, because it's hard to project funding revenues and resources beyond 10 years. Actually, it's really difficult even to do 5 years. So that's just my suggestion.
And I was just speaking of the vision, 2028, updating that as well, not 2050 strategic plan. That's too long.
Yeah, it's that there has to be synergy between your vision and your strategic planning. You have a vision without deliverables, and we are working on the CIP, so I think it's a good merge document.
And just as a final comment, that's why I was mentioning redoing the vision, because none of us were part of that vision. And if we're building a strategic plan around a vision that none of us were necessarily a part of building, that's why I was offering that opportunity to reboot.
All right. Anything else to add before I open?
No, go ahead.
I have one thing. One of the reasons I'm
Okay.
kind of for... Thank you. One of the reasons I'm kind of for the current model for leadership is I found it really interesting when we were at the governance training that they had stated the average expectancy of a CEO was something like 3 years?
3 to 5 years, I think.
3 to 5 years. Whereas we had ours in place for many years. Prior to this, we've had them going back, like Kelly Cox was in there for 30 years or something, So the retention difference between the CEO and the CAO model seemed to be a big difference on retention. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
CEO?
I can speak to that very clearly. I worked and mentored in Glendale, Arizona, and there's someone who had 25 years. That is not the current business trend in municipal government, municipal or county government. It is 5 to 7 years, and it's because of the political nature of the position. It just isn't the way it used to be, just FYI. But I appreciate your comment.
All right, I'm going to open it up for public comment. Come on up and speak 3 minutes and...
Good afternoon, Tom Lasik. I don't usually talk about it, but once upon a time I actually had a job. And it was a good job, and it was in a budget in the 9 figures. And we operated under a CEO model. It actually was a hybrid model. We called it a program office, which would be the municipal equivalent of a CAO, but we also had a chain of command. And I see the parallels every time I sit there and see what you guys are going through and what staff is going through. The easy thing I would like to comment is, yes, you do need a strategic plan. And my observation is seeing how the general plan and the local area plans evolved. It was not typical from my experience. And I think it ended up being more difficult than it really needed to be. As it pertains to the CEO model, there is no perfect solution. You will probably be better off with a hybrid. I think you'll find having the direct connects with directors when you need to have that connectivity is going to be critical. But then for the day-to-day churn of what needs to happen and the deliverables, a CAO runs a lot of interference and for the board. How you organize yourself really depends on your culture, how you decide to operate as a unit. But there is going from CAO to CEO isn't going to solve your problem. Sticking with CAO isn't going to solve your problem. There is no perfect solution. In fact, in our company, about every 3 years, we would swing the pendulum completely the other way and then swing it back. The retention of having a program office, or we have a CAO, is that stability and longevity. You do get consistency, repeatability. You have good process that you can establish. The advantage of having a CEO framework is that you can have direct connect. And if you don't like something, you can actually step in and you can cut through a lot of layers. So again, from someone that used to actually have a job, and sees many of the things that you're going through and appreciates very much so all the effort that you put into it and what staff puts into it. I actually prefer having a CAO to do a lot of the heavy lifting, but the CEO still needs to be there. You still need to have direct authority for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in chambers?
Good afternoon, Board. Margot Kambara. Just a suggestion or two. In terms of preserving staff resources and consideration of staff time, what I've noticed as a member of the public is that there are it's rather common to have an item continued. And if we could have more stable scheduling of topics, especially these weighty topics that contain hundreds of pages of reports, that might help staff plan out their workload in terms of when they have to be available for your questions or to prepare executive summaries, et cetera. But also, as a member of the public, I think we would get more engagement if these weighty reports and these weighty topics, if we could have advance notice of, hey, such and such a topic is penciled in for such and such a date. That would give the public some heads up and saying, well, yeah, I'm really interested in that topic and I do want to read up on that. So for your consideration, I know it's not the main thread of your conversations here, but if you're talking about streamlining and more public engagement and preserving staff resources and resource time, think of your agenda and building your agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public input? Public comment, I'm sorry, I keep saying input, that's at the beginning. All right, bring it back to the board. It sounds like we have the direction. Is there more that you need to clarify? No? No? Or no?
No, I think we got a yes for all three
All right.
possibilities.
All right. Just want to make sure. All right, with that, if we have the direction we need, we can close this item.